My name is Lee Smith. I am a private investigator by trade. Though most days I feel more like a collector of forgotten human misery. People come to my office when the police give up, when the missing person posters begin to fade under the autumn rain, and when the official reports settle on convenient lies. It started with a phone call. The voice on the receiver belonged to a woman, cold, raspy, and distant, like sound traveling through miles of frozen earth. She claimed to be looking for her son, Michael Leeds. That name immediately sent a chill down my spine. Anyone who followed the local news knew about Michael Leeds, the young man currently rotting in a county cell, convicted of butchering his friends during a camping trip in the Gracewind Nature Reserve back in 1992. The trial was a farce, rushed by local authorities desperate to reassure the public that the woods were safe. But Michael had swore to anyone who would listen that he didn't do it. He claimed something monstrous had stalked them from the tree line, mimicking their screams before dragging them one by one into the dark. The woman on the phone told me her son had escaped custody, or wandered back into the reserve, guided by voices only he could hear. She begged me to find him. She gave me coordinates to an uncharted sector of Gracewind, deep beyond Tower 4. I drove out to the reserve that very night. The paved road soon gave way to gravel, and gravel to a muddy track choked by overgrown pines. Deep inside the thick fog, my headlights caught a rusted, abandoned Ranger vehicle sitting on the shoulder of the road, its driver's side door left wide open, swaying gently in the night breeze. That truck belonged to the night ranger from Tower 4, who had mysteriously vanished just a few weeks prior. Following the coordinates, I pushed past the abandoned truck and hiked deeper into the woods until the trees parted to reveal a dilapidated two-story house. It sat in a clearing like a decaying tooth. Its wooden frame groaned under the wind, and its roof sagged beneath decades of moss and rot. Stepping through the front door, the air inside was suffocating, thick with the stench of stagnant water, mold, and dried blood. As I moved through the foyer with my flashlight, a heavy, rhythmic thumping vibrated beneath my feet. It was coming from the master bedroom. I pushed the door open, and found a heavy wooden bed frame pushed over a trapdoor in the floorboards. Beneath the bed, 5 heavy iron chains locked the hatch down, each secured by a distinct, ancient padlock. Then, a voice bled through the cracks of the trapdoor. It was a woman's voice, weak, pleading, echoing from the abyss below. She begged me to set her free, claiming she had been locked in the darkness for over a century. I tried to force the locks, using a crowbar I found in the kitchen, but the moment I tampered with the wrong chain, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The temperature plummeted to freezing. The shadows in the corner stretched and twisted, and a terrifying, inhuman roar echoed from the hallway. A towering figure with a grotesque goat skull and glowing crimson eyes burst into the room. Before I could even raise my revolver, its heavy, cloven hooves crushed my chest. Everything went black. And then, I woke up. I was standing outside the dilapidated house again, my flashlight in hand, my car keys cold in my pocket. It felt like a fever dream, yet the bruises on my chest were painfully real. A temporal loop. The forest had reset itself. I entered the house a second time. This time, I didn't rush to the trapdoor. As I stepped into the parlor, a translucent figure materialized in the corner. A pale ghost wearing a torn ranger uniform. It was the missing guard from Tower 4. He couldn't speak, but his glowing hand pointed toward a desk cluttered with torn journal entries. He had been here before me. He had tried to break the seal and failed. His soul now trapped to guide whoever came next. Through his notes and the ancient leather-bound journals scattered across the house, the dark, forgotten history of Gracewind began to unravel before my eyes. The house had belonged to a woman named Alice Candor, back in the 1870s. In 1879, as a young girl, Alice fell into the black waters of Gracewind Lake and nearly drowned. She was saved by an entity, a malevolent spirit she called Eurydice, or as the ancient lore referred to her, the Lady of the Lake. But Eurydice was not a savior. She was a parasite. Only Alice could see her. When Alice's parents noticed their daughter whispering to empty corners, her father grew convinced she was a witch. In May 1881, driven by madness, he tried to drown her in the same lake, but Alice couldn't die. Instead, the entity drowned her father in his place. Ostracized by the village, Alice lived alone in this house for decades. Lost travelers often stumbled upon her cabin, asking for directions out of the dense woods. But whenever Alice helped them, Eurydice grew furious. The entity wanted souls trapped in the woods forever. As punishment for Alice's compassion, Eurydice gouged out one of Alice's eyes. Years later, in 1893, when Alice helped a group of lost children reach the village, Eurydice took her remaining eye, blinding her completely. Before showing her a cruel truth, none of the people Alice guided had ever left the forest. Eurydice had mimicked her directions, and led them all into the deep marsh to be consumed. In 1909, Eurydice placed a mute orphan child on Elisa's doorstep. Alice raised the boy and named him Philip. Philip grew unnaturally fast. Unable to speak a single word of his own, yet possessed the terrifying ability to mimic any human voice he heard with absolute perfection. Eventually, the superstitious villagers surrounded the house, accusing Alice of witchcraft and calling Philip a monster. Desperate to protect her adopted son, Alice ordered Philip to scare the villagers away, but the mob brutally murdered the boy. Broken by grief and rage, Alice realized the true horror of Eurydice's plan. To stop the entity from spreading beyond Gracewind, Alice performed a forbidden dark ritual. Using the occult sigils of Azazel, she bound Eurydice's spirit to her own physical body. Alice locked herself inside the subterranean cellar beneath her bedroom, chaining the trapdoor with 5 ritualistic padlocks. Before sealing herself away forever, Alice resurrected Philip. She used Azazel's dark magic to bind his soul into a hulking, terrifying guardian, the Goatman. She placed 5 sacred relics around the cabin, and the reserve to serve as keys, tasking the Goatman with guarding those keys for all eternity. Philip's tragic duty was to hunt down anyone, whether lost hikers, curious rangers, or foolish investigators, who came close to breaking the locks and releasing the evil trapped beneath the floorboards. I finally understood the nightmare of Gracewind. The Goatman wasn't a senseless monster. It was a tragic, undead son protecting his mother's sacrifice. The 27-year cycle of disappearances was the Goatman hunting down those who were drawn into the forest by Eurydice's whispers, preventing anyone from unearthing the 5 keys. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't break the chains blindly. I had to find the 5 specific sacred relics to undo the wards safely. Guided by the ranger's spirit, I began searching the house. For the first key, I found a small brass key hidden inside a wall panel, opened a shed behind the cabin, and retrieved a dusty music box. Using a lighter to burn away a scorched canvas on the wall, I revealed a tiny silver key that unlocked the music box, revealing a golden locket, the first key. For the second key, I searched the study drawers, uncovering torn fragments of sheet music. Using a UV light, I discovered glowing purple notes written across the keys of an old upright piano in the parlor. As I played the melody correctly, a hidden compartment slid open, yielding a sharpened bone relic, the second key. For the third key, I collected a strange wax figurine standing near the windowsill, lit the fireplace, and melted the wax over the grate. From the liquid dripping wax, a heavy silver signet ring emerged, the third key. For the fourth key, I decoded a UV cipher hidden on the bedroom wall to unlock a sealed apothecary cabinet. Inside, I found a vial of consecrated water and a preserved crow carcass. Bringing them to the kitchen, I poured the holy water into a black iron basin and submerged the crow. The water bubbled furiously before turning crystal clear, leaving behind a polished, stone-carved eye at the bottom, the fourth key. In that moment, the sickening realization hit me like a physical blow. The voice that had called my office the mother begging for her lost son, Michael, it was never a human woman. It was Eurydice, the Lady of the Lake. She had used Michael Leeds' trial to draw an investigator into the woods. She had manipulated the missing ranger, and when he failed, she used me. Alice Cantor hadn't been begging for rescue. She had been holding the door shut from the inside with every ounce of her soul. And I, believing I was solving a mystery and saving a victim, had just unsealed the ancient parasite that Alice had sacrificed her life to contain. I tried to scramble backward, to reach for my gun, but my limbs felt heavy, paralyzed by an unnatural chill. The entity rose from the cellar, her form shifting and wavering like liquid shadow. She didn't attack me. Instead, she stepped closer, her cold, invisible touch brushing against my face. Her raspy voice echoed directly inside my mind, chilling me to the absolute core. "Thank you, detective. I have been waiting so long for a new voice." My vision blurred. The bright morning light turned into an overwhelming, blinding white. My thoughts drifted away, pulled into a deep, endless abyss. This is local news for the morning of November the 2nd, 1999. Authorities investigating the Gracewind Nature Reserve have reported a strange development in the ongoing search for private investigator Lee Smith, who vanished 2 weeks ago while investigating the regional disappearances. Search teams discovered an abandoned vehicle near an uncharted clearing, but found no trace of the investigator. Surprisingly, forest rangers report that the dense, unnatural fog that has plagued the northern sector of Gracewind for decades has completely cleared overnight. In a statement released earlier today, state prosecutors announced that new evidence has come to light regarding the 1992 Gracewind murders. The conviction of Michael Leeds is currently under official review, as authorities re-evaluate the mysterious circumstances surrounding the case. Meanwhile, visitors to the reserve are advised to stay on marked trails, as several hikers have reported hearing a calm, unfamiliar voice calling out from the deep woods, offering directions to those who are lost. I brought the 4 relics back to the trapdoor, and placed them into the corresponding locks. 4 iron chains snapped with a deafening groan, and fell away like dead snakes. Only 1 lock remained. The 5th key was missing. A note left by the dead ranger revealed the truth. The final key, a sacred protective amulet, had been carried away from the cabin during his first encounter with the beast, and was dropped near Lookout Tower 4. I rushed out of the cabin into the howling wind, following a narrow, overgrown trail that wound up the northern ridge. The forest seemed to twist against me, tree branches clawing at my jacket like desperate hands. In the distance, the silhouette of Tower 4 loomed against the stormy sky, its wooden stairs splintered and stained with old blood. At the foot of the stairs, lying in the mud, was the silver amulet. As my fingers closed around the cold metal, a blood-curdling howl echoed through the valley, a sound half goat, half human, dripping with agony and rage. I spun around. The goatman emerged from the fog, its massive, grotesque frame towering over me, its crimson eyes burning through the rain. It recognized the amulet. It knew I was about to undo its mother's sacrifice. The creature lunged forward, its heavy hooves tearing up the earth. I fired my revolver 3 times into its chest, but the bullets did nothing to slow its charge. Desperate, I sprinted back down the trail toward the cabin, the heavy thud of hooves pounding right behind me. Leaves rustled, branches snapped, and a distorted voice, a horrifying mashup of the hiker's screams, the ranger's last words, and my own voice, echoed from the trees, begging me to stop. I burst through the front door of the cabin, slammed it shut behind me, and threw my body onto the bedroom floor beside the trapdoor. The goatman smashed against the outer walls, its claws tearing through the wooden siding, roaring in pure desperation. With hands trembling so violently I could barely breathe, I pressed the 5th relic, the silver amulet, into the final padlock. Click! The heavy iron padlock snapped open. The 5th chain fell to the floorboards. Instantly, the roaring outside stopped. The frantic banging ceased. A suffocating silence fell over the house, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. I sat on the floor, panting, staring at the unchained trapdoor. The air in the room suddenly grew warm. Sunlight, bright, golden morning light, began to pour through the grimy windows, burning away the thick fog that had shrouded the clearing for decades. Slowly, the trapdoor began to creak open from below. A hand reached out from the darkness of the cellar. It was not the withered, frail hand of an old woman who had been buried for a century. It was smooth, porcelain white, and dripping with black lake water.